Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, as always, thank you so much for all the support. We have some more Christmas projects, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number one. All right, I have a bunch of things from the Dollar Tree, two little Christmas trees, a hat, another hat, a planter, and some of the garland ties. Now this hat, it had a little pull in it, so I'm just gonna tuck it in. You're never going to notice, just pulled it through the other side. And I'm going to wrap the knit cap around the planter. So I was thinking it would just sit nice on there, but there was a bit of a bulge on the bottom. I thought maybe there was like an indent. And I'm sorry, you can probably hear Sammy shaking over here with his chain. But anyway, I undid that little bulge where the hat came together, and I slipped it back down over the planter, and that worked much better. Now, my hot glue gun was not hot yet, so I'm gonna set this aside for a little bit until that gets all heated so that I can secure this down. But in the meantime, I'm just kind of playing with it to see how it's going to line up on here. So setting that aside, and I'm going to go ahead and get my little trees prepared. So I am going to fluff these up on just a single side. Here, got both of them out here. But I'm going to fluff. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was just trying to fluff and that came like right out. But anyway, fluffing one side of the tree, so all of the branches, but fluffing them towards just the one side, and then doing the same thing with the other, and I'm going to put them together. And the reason I did this is I wanted to make this a bit fuller. So I'm going to create one tree out of the two, and I'm going to use these garland ties to attach them together. So in between the sections of branches, I am wrapping these around until they become about the same length of the branches that are at that level. So as I go down the tree, I'm going to twist them less so that they are a good length, and they look like they belong as part of the tree, and it's all going to blend in nicely together. And I did that all the way down the length of the tree, and it also helped to just fill in that trunk, which I really liked. So now I've got my hot glue is all ready to go. I put a generous amount down on the base there and just kind of sliding this up. And I decided I was going to put a whole bunch more right on top of it there and down inside the little hole there to just make sure that it was all nice and secure. And I'm going to grab a piece of parchment paper and some paper towel to protect my hand from the heat. So the parchment paper is something that the glue will not stick to, and then I was just using the paper towel for heat protection, basically, so I didn't burn myself. So just making sure that this is nice and cool. Gonna put some parchment paper down again because there was a little bit in the middle there that was still cooling down, so I don't want it to stick to my table. And then right around the rim of the planter, I'm just going to put a little bead of hot glue and secure the brim of the hat to the top of my planter there. And I just did that all the way around the planter until I made it to the place where I had started. So our planter is going to be all ready to go. And you can do this with any kind of a project. If you just like the way that it looks nice and cozy for the winter time, why not do this in general with your pots? I think it's super cute. So this was ready to go. I'm just checking out how it's going to look with my tree in it. So I've got a bunch of plastic bags that I'm going to tuck in here because it needed a little bit of support underneath. My planter is a little deep for my tree, so I needed to sit up a little higher. And then I'm using paper towel. I probably should have gotten my batting or something to just make it look snow covered. Honestly, you don't even see it, or you can't really tell that it's paper towel when you see it sitting on the shelf. But yeah, I don't know. I was just grabbing what I had handy. So now I am putting my hat on here. I thought I might need to make it a little bit more narrow, a little narrower, but it actually fit really well tucked right up on top of there. So I got that all situated and it's looking super cute. I don't know if you can see real well. I'll show you a picture at the end, but I have a pom-pom ball that I was off camera. I tucked it up underneath the hat on the front side as the nose for our little gnome tree guy. And now these are, geez, you know, the dogs are now playing with toys. So now I've got squeaky toys going on in the background. I apologize. Goodness. But I am using 2 strands of lights, and there you can see the nose. But 2 strands of lights from the Dollar Tree. These take 2 AA batteries each, and they have a simple on-off switch. But let me know what you think of this. DIY number 2. All right, I have yarn that I picked up from the Hobby Lobby. I also have some poster board. I have a piece of parchment paper. Parchment paper? Yeah, it's parchment. That I am going to try to use to create a pattern for myself. Now, I use parchment in my projects because things don't really stick to it. So I don't know why I was thinking I was going to be able to tape this and have it stick. So I'm like, duh, Corie, grabbed a piece of legal-sized copy paper, and I made my little pattern that way. So I'm just rolling it up into a cone. I'm going to create a Christmas tree shape with it. I'm trying to figure out a way to get it all nice and even at the bottom and curved nicely so that it'll sit well on my table. And I'm not real good at getting the right curvature with that kind of thing. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to fold the whole thing multiple times. The more times I fold it, I know that I'm going to have more of a curve going on at the bottom there. It's not going to be perfect, but I got it close enough. And now I've got my little cone shape that's going to sit on my table. Now, if you have styrofoam trees or cone shapes that you would like to use, that is perfectly fine. I don't have any in my stash right now, and so I decided I was going to make my cones. But styrofoam cones work. I'm using poster board here, which, to be honest, was a little bit stiff to work with. I managed to create the cones here, but a heavy cardstock might actually be better. So I'm using my first cutout to create a second one. I'm doing it a little bit smaller than the first, so it's going to be a little shorter. And then eventually I did do a third one so that I would have 3 little cone shapes at varying heights. So I don't know why I'm showing you all of this tracing, but I got it all cut out and then I started trying to put them together. It just took some coaxing and working the poster board a little bit to get it to curve the way I wanted it. And then I just used hot glue right along the seam. On each of them, I glued the tip first to make sure that I didn't end up with a really large hole at the top. And then I worked my way down. So that was the first one. Here's the second one. And for this one, it was a little bit off, so I did end up having to trim it a little bit. But yeah, worked out well. And then this is where I decided I was going to make a third one as well, but I won't put you through all of that because you saw how I made that before. So here are all of 3 of them. You can hopefully tell that they're all different sizes. I'm using my little ladybug vacuum, clean things up a little bit there. And now for the yarn. Sorry, Sammy is trying to get me to play with them. So I've got this really fun fluffy yarn, but I'm using a basic yarn. I kind of poked it through the tip there because I want to pull, I made a loop. I put the fluffy yarn through the loop and I'm pulling it down inside the cone because I wanted the end to be hidden inside. And then just to put a little bit of hot glue on there to get it anchored. And I'm just going to twist this all the way down the length of my cone. Sam dog, come over here. I'm sorry, you guys. He's like barking at me and stuff. He just wants to play, and yeah, we got stuff to do here. But I am just going to continue all the way down the length of the cone. And if I did have it to do over again, I wouldn't use quite as much yarn. You can see I'm kind of twisting it around there because it started feeling like it was getting loose on me. And I think it's because it was kind of sliding up the cone a bit. And as it slid up, you know, from the wider part to the more narrow, or the narrower part, it was feeling a little loose. So if I had it to do over again, I would probably use a little bit of hot glue on my way down just to kind of anchor the yarn and keep it in place. But it still turned out super cute. I think this yarn makes it look like a snow-covered tree, and I just absolutely adore it. So as I got down to the bottom, I just went ahead and made sure that everything was even so that my tree is going to stand upright and not lean, and I tucked in that yarn at the bottom. So I have this is the yarn, same piece of yarn I used before, made a loop through the top, you know, and pulled my other yarn that I'm working with through. This one is a little bit different than the first one. It's like a velvety, soft ribbon. It's the same brand, and I'm going to show you the labels in just a minute, but same brand, different style of yarn, but still super soft and fun, and I am in love with it. So working my way down, and this one, for whatever reason, worked a lot better. This, it didn't slide up the cone like the first one had, and I didn't have any kind of issues with it. So just used that little bit of hot glue at the very tip once I had the yarn pulled through the tip of the cone just to anchor it. And now I'm using the hot glue here at the bottom, at the base. And again, I'm just going to make sure that everything is nice and even, that I don't have yarn going lower on one end than on the other, because otherwise it's just going to end up leaning when I try to set up my little cone. So just finishing off the base there. And then I will work it in just along that bottom edge, because I also want to make sure that all of the poster board is covered. I don't want any of that to show, right? So just want to make sure it's nice and finished. And I didn't really work inside the cone at all. I just made sure that the exterior of the cone was completely covered, that the very bottom piece was covered, and then I did tuck in the end with some hot glue just inside that bottom edge to hide the end of my yarn. So I apparently wanted to show you a whole bunch of this and how I was doing it. But if you haven't already subscribed, I hope that you will consider doing that and hitting that little bell so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video. I appreciate you all so much, and thank you. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. I hope you'll leave me a comment. Let me know what you're doing for the holidays. And here we go. So the yarn bee, and here Magnus, yeah, I can't even say those words, but it's the yarn bee, velvety smooth. I showed you the colors and the names of the styles. Okay, here's the third one. It's going to be the same thing. So anchoring it with some glue at the top. This one is a skinnier yarn, but it's still that velvety, soft kind of feel. With this one, I had an issue, right? So I was starting to work it down, and it wanted to slide up on me. I'm not sure why, but it did. And you can see it's kind of getting wonky. I'm trying to fix it. And I actually ended up undoing this one. Yep, here we go. Taking all the yarn off up to maybe just an inch from the top is what I ended up doing. I was like, oh, can I fix it here? I took it off all the way up to where you see. And then I did start just using a little bit of hot glue just here and there to anchor it down so that it wouldn't slide up the cone on me. So you don't need a lot. You can see I literally just put it in one little space along the seam there and just continue to wrap. And once I got well past the hot glue, I would put another little bit there to just grab and anchor that yarn so that it wasn't going to go anywhere. And so if I had to do it again, like I said, on that ivory colored one, I probably would do it this way and just put a little bit of hot glue in there, here and there, to just anchor it and make sure that it wasn't going to move anywhere. So went ahead and finished off the bottom of that one, and that's it. I've got my 3 little trees. I think these are so sweet. I do have them on my TV stand and I love them, but let me know what you think. DIY number 3. All right, I have a wreath from the Hobby Lobby. This was originally $12.99. I got it for 60% off, so it was $5.20. And I'm going to start by fluffing this up. Now, this is something I am making for my sister's friend, Jenny. She had, I had seen her at a gathering over the weekend, and she asked if I would make her one. And so I told her I'd be more than happy to do that. And this is a little bit fashioned after something that I had done, I think it was I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, you guys. But it was more of a decomesh base. This one, Jenny wanted more greenery, so we're doing it with the greenery base. I've got this piece of cardboard from my stash that I had fashioned quite some time ago. It's about 6 inches long. So we're going to be, I had some scrap ribbon there, not scrap ribbon. They were leftover pieces of ribbon from the wreath that I had made before. And I am going to be cutting down some additional pieces of ribbon. Both in the buffalo check and this other really pretty ribbon with a wider red trim on it. But just wrap it around my cardboard piece. And because the cardboard piece is 6 inches, this is doubled. So these are 12-inch lengths of ribbon that I am cutting down here. And just going to go ahead and fold the ends over and dovetail them. So just make them nice and neat. So once I had all of my ribbon set, I did enough ribbon to do 10 little bunches like this. So I think I had 10 of the buffalo check ribbon, and then I had 5 each of the other, I think it was 5 each of the other ribbon. But just putting them all together in these little bunches, you kind of set them at angles to one another, and you pinch them in the middle and then use a chenille stem to twist it off. So I'm just going to get all of these prepared a little bit randomly, different orders, so that they look a little bit different around the wreath, but yet uniform. And once I had them all set, I'm going to go ahead and set them aside for right now and grab my picks to decorate the wreath with. I have these really pretty red berry picks that I got off of Amazon. I also have some boxwood that I'm going to be using in a minute, as well as some white baby's breath type picks. So I left the long stem on these berries, and I'm actually using that to attach the berry pick to the wreath. I wrapped it around the frame, and now I'm kind of wrapping it around itself to just make sure it's nice and secure, and that worked like a charm. So went ahead and attached the rest of the berries around the wreath. Now I'm coming in with my boxwood. I used just the one pick of the boxwood. You can use as much or as little as you want. This is your wreath. You get to be creative and decide how you want to do it. But coming in and tucking those pieces in as well. Those stems were not quite as long, so I'm going to have to make sure that I anchor them with zip ties later. So here I am cutting down the baby's breath flowers. These stems were much longer, which is why I did go ahead and trim them down. Now you can see I am trying to do the same thing with this stem that I did with the berry picks, and trying to get it kind of wrapped around itself to anchor it, but they weren't quite as pliable as the stems with the berry picks. So those are also going to just need to, I couldn't get them as tight, so they're going to need to be zip tied as well. So now I am coming in with all of my ribbon. I am just poking the chenille stems down through into the wreath around the frame and twisting it off in the back. And I'm not showing how I twist it, but once I'm ready to finish off the back side, you will see those chenille stems, and you'll hopefully see what I'm talking about. All right, so I did leave a blank area here for a bow, and I'm going to use the buffalo check ribbon for the main base of the bow, and I'm just alternating it, oh, not alternating, but kind of like an accordion fold, so back and forth and back and forth, until I get the number of loops that I think will be good for this wreath, which is a total of 10. So 5 loops on either side, and just working my way back and forth and back and forth. Once I have the number of loops, I can go ahead and cut my ribbon off. And now I'm going to be finding the center here, and I'm going to notch the ribbon on either side. And just a small, tiny little notch is all you need, like a 1/4 of an inch max. And it's just so that you can drop that chenille stem in there and twist that off. But by doing the notch, when we go to fluff out the ribbon, we can pull on those loops, and they are not going to get pulled through and out of the chenille stem. They're going to stay put. And so that's going to help keep our bow nice and even as well. So once I had this all fluffed up, I was looking at it and I'm like, well, it's really pretty, but I felt like I needed some of the burlap in there with it. So I was trying to decide how I wanted to do it. While I was deciding, I went ahead and trimmed off the ends. I was just dovetailing those so that they were nice and neat. And I decided I wanted the knot of the bow to be the burlap. So I'm just looking for, I'm not sure what I was doing there. I was eventually looking for the center again so that I could flatten it out. I grabbed some of the burlap ribbon, and then I decided I also wanted to have the buffalo check tail as well. So I pulled off an equal length of ribbon. If I had to guess, I would say this is probably 3 or 4 feet long. I got them all set together. And now I'm going to tie it around the middle of my bow. So just take your time with this because it is a little bit awkward to work with. And, you know, the bow part, it didn't want to stay put. So you can see it moving. So just be patient with yourself. Take your time. Go slow with trying to get it tightened. And eventually you will get it to where you need it. It kept wanting to kind of slide down one side of my loops, so I just wanted to make sure that everything was nice and even before I tightened it super securely. And I don't know if you noticed, but I've got the chenille stem kind of straddling the knot that I'm making here. So I've got one piece of chenille stem on either side, and we're going to use that to attach it to the wreath in a minute. So just fluffing out all of my little loops. So it's a very different bow than what I first had, but I like this a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the wreath now with those chenille stems that I had used originally in creating the loops. Tuck that down inside, and we will twist that off at the back. And then I'll be showing you in just a second how I took care of the back side and finishing it all off. So, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and trim up the ends of the tails. Just went ahead and folded them and dovetailed them. Just be careful when you do that. I got a little too close and totally cut my finger. You can see I've got a band-aid on my pointer finger now, but I'm just going to roll these all up so that they can kind of make curly cues as they cascade down. All right, so now we're cleaning up the back. You can see all of the chenille stems from the ribbons that I tied on or twisted on, and just twisting these up and tucking them in to the back of the wreath, just getting that cleaned up. So now I'm going to grab my zip ties, and for each of those stems that's a little bit loose, I'm going to go ahead and tuck the zip tie in and around, and making sure that I'm also catching the wreath form itself so that everything is nice and anchored, and pulling that tight. And I'm going to do that for each of the stems that I added on here, with the exception of the berry stems, because those were perfectly fine on their own. And then I'm going to just trim off all of those little ends of the zip ties so that nothing is sticking out or being pokey. You do want to leave a little bit of that tail just so that it doesn't end up getting pulled out of the zip tie clasp. Fluffing up my ribbon, and this one is done. And now it's time for a shout out timeout. Great, Denise. These are so sweet. I love them so much. And beautiful Rose, thank you both for sharing. Sorry, you can hear Sammy's all excited too, but I would love to give you a shout out as well. If you have interest, just send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. All right, I have a whole bunch of bells from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to start by taking off that wire garland that they have at the top to kind of embellish these. I'm not such a big fan of that. I don't know. These, I liked the shapes of them. And so I'd gotten the different shapes and the different patterns, not different shapes, they're all bell shaped, but hopefully you know what I'm talking about. You can see one is kind of like a tulip shape. And anyway, I've got my black chalk paint here, as well as some makeup sponges, and I'm going to be using these to knock down the shine on these bells. Now, I really loved the way this worked on the gold bell. I was almost wishing that all my bells were gold, because it ended up looking like a burnished copper. Is that the right term? I don't know. An old copper bell. So bear with me for just a minute, because I know that it's looking really dark, but wait until you see how this looks on this bell. It ends up looking really, really cool. So just using, do you see what I'm saying? I think it's so neat. It ended up being a little bit darker than I wanted, so I did come back in. This is, once all of them had the black on it, this is a brushed metal. This is by Folk Art, and I am going to use another little piece of sponge, and I'm going to think galvanized, right? So galvanizing with gold as opposed to silver. So anytime you do a galvanized treatment, you're using your silver and your black and the white. I pretty much used that treatment for these bells. So I had started with the black, coming in with the gold, and then I actually will use white and then more gold, and then I've got a special thing that I ended up doing with it in just a minute. But you can kind of see how this one was silver originally, and with the black on it, it kind of knocked down that shine, made it look a little less plasticky. And then coming in with the gold, it's not meant to be full coverage, right? That is not my intent here. And you can see I'm now coming in with the white. The one at the top left, I already have the white on it, so it is not full coverage, right? This really is, I'm kind of treating it the way that I would if I were galvanizing something. So coming all in with the white, and you know, it's a process, right? So you got to be patient and trust the process. So yeah, now I think I was coming back in with more gold here until I got it the way I wanted. I just kept layering the paint, right? Layering the different colors, tamping down the brightness, and then if it got too dark, bringing it back up a little bit with either the gold or the white. I'm just getting it to where I wanted it. Once I had it now this is agave. I decided that I wanted a little bit of, not tarnish. I knew this word last night when I was editing the video. Oh my goodness. Somebody will let me know in the comments. But, oh my goodness, it's what happens to copper when it ages. It's not tarnish. You all know what I'm talking about, but I'm doing that little kind of green color along the edges here. Now this was a little bit light, so I took some black and I'm kind of tamping that over top of the agave color, and it really, I was impressed with how this looked. I was really, really excited about it. Now, of course, I didn't do the inside of these bells because I figured you were only going to really see the outside. You could totally do the inside as well to knock down that shine. But yeah, now I've got a really rustic piece of burlap. I don't even want to call it ribbon. It's definitely not. I pulled it off a roll of burlap. It was what was being used to tie the burlap roll. And I kept it because I thought, well, maybe I'll have a use for it sometime. So I'm using it for this because I figured these look like really old bells. I'm going to use something that looks like really old burlap or really old rope. I don't know. I kind of thought it would go with the look. So just tying these together, spacing them just an inch or two apart along the line. I'm kind of picking them up from time to time to see how they're hanging, because I just want to make sure that they're going to hang nicely. Once I had them all tied off, I went ahead and created a loop with the excess rope, for lack of a better term, so that I had a hanger for them. And then I decided that it really needed a little something else. So I grabbed some more of this ribbon and I am just going to go ahead and make a loop bow. So I've got my loop there, and then I'm going to tie another piece around the middle of it to create my little bow. Just like we did before, taking my time, making sure that everything is centered before I tie it off really tight, and just working the ribbon until I get it to the way that I want it. For this one, I just cut the ends at an angle. I did not dovetail them. You certainly can. I guess I did that in a second. But then I'm tying this onto the hanger part. I was trying to figure out how best to do it and where I wanted the bow to hang. So it's basically just at the top of all of the bells, and I tied it to the hanger. Here I am just kind of cutting off the ends at an angle. You can dovetail them if you want. I opted not to for this, but this is all done. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the project, please remember to give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know which one was your favorite. Happy holidays, and until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.